Good afternoon, Vassilis. Thank you for being in this interview. Can you just briefly introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, Max. Thank you for inviting me in this interview. So I'm a senior researcher at the National Technical University of Athens. I'm working in the Artificial Intelligence and Learning Systems Lab for more than 15 years. I have a PhD in linked data technologies, and my main area of expertise is digital culture. I have been working with Europeana, and in particular in Europeana-related projects for more than 15 years. I have been involved in the creation of the Europeana data model, and also been part in the development in one of the most important tools for Europeana called MINT, which has been used to facilitate semantic interoperability in the cultural heritage domain. I'm also participating in the data space for cultural heritage, which is a new service contract which started in September, and where the Europeana Foundation is the coordinator. And we participate there as technical partners, again facilitating several technical issues, mostly on semantic interoperability issues. And I'm also working in other sectors for e-government, in particular for business registries, where we also apply the same technologies in ensuring semantic interoperability, cross-border semantic interoperability in the business registries sector. So I also have some knowledge in this area.
So I understand your interest in SEMIC is also because SEMIC is about semantic interoperability, and especially between and within data spaces. So the connection between your cultural heritage data space and the wider area of data spaces must be of interest. What do you see as the challenges for connecting data spaces?
I think there are many challenges. Being very active in the data space for cultural heritage, and we had several discussions the past 2 years that we've heard, and we know about this new term, which is not very new, the data space term. There are many challenges, and I can say that there are not only technical challenges. Of course, there is the challenge of sharing data among the data spaces, which may be at the end the most easy, let's say, task that we can think of. There are technologies that we can use in order to share the data, although it's not easy, but maybe easier than other tasks in ensuring interoperability between the data spaces. The discussions that we have in the data space for cultural heritage is that the data space is not only about technologies, it's also about the communities involved in those data spaces, and the community building, and so many other actions that the data space has to make in order to develop the data space. So we have to take this into account, and also we have to take into account the particularities of each data space. They're not all the same, they don't have exactly the same data, and they don't need maybe semantic interoperability in the same levels, because there are different levels of semantic interoperability. There is at the dataset level, there is at the item level. I'm saying this because in Europeana, in the cultural heritage data space, we work a lot on the semantic interoperability on the item level, and not so much on the data space level. So, for example, DCAT AP is not so much in use in the data space for cultural heritage, where I know that the DCAT AP is one of the main products of SEMIC, and the most important one. But we would also need to go a little bit deeper on the interoperability levels that we need to make sure that exist.
So would there be, in your view, a role for SEMIC to help you doing that, or to connect the item level descriptions that you have with wider areas of, for example, tourism or those kind of things? Would there be a role for SEMIC that you could see?
Definitely. From my experience, I can say that, of course, the CAT AP is very important. Make sure that you have interoperability at the highest level and you can share datasets, you can find datasets and the basic information about those datasets. But if you want to process these datasets, you have to go down to the item level. And this is something that I would like SEMIC to get into and focus a little bit more. I know that one thing comes after the other. It's not easy to focus in all the different levels at the same time. But I think it's time now to go deeper and work especially with the core vocabularies that I know that they can make sure that they can ensure interoperability at the item level and go even deeper and deeper at every year. And so you make sure that you find the correct data set, but you can process the data set and see what's inside and how you can exactly manipulate the data inside. So I think that's one of the things that the SEMIC should focus the following period.
Bringing people together who are interested in sort of diving deeper into the data sets for particular cases. In your case, I guess it is about paintings and those kind of items that you're interested in that might be very interesting also for tourism data space, for people who want to see a certain painting somewhere, and then having the link between those data spaces clearly described, which is something that SEMIC might be able to help with. That's what you're...
That's exactly what I'm saying, and that's correct. And you need to know what's the data about. So the example that you said is very, very valid. So if we want to set up interoperability between the tourism and the cultural heritage data space, and we say that there is a group of people that wants to get into the actual data and see the painting or the museum or a monument, you need to dive deeper into the data. There are also other data spaces that cultural heritage data space could work with. For example, the media data space. I know that there is also already connection between those two data spaces. And again, the interoperability on the data level is, of course, very much needed, but it has to go deeper. And so I suppose that this is a need also for interoperability between other data space. Okay, maybe the cultural heritage doesn't have a connection with the health data space, but I suppose that between the health and other data spaces, they would need this sort of interoperability.
Also on the item level.
Also on the item level. So we need to focus also on standards that provide expressivity and representation on the item level.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your views, and we're certainly going to take those into account. Thank you.